Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Habs Tonight Postgame Show with Marco and I. The Habs fall to the Winnipeg Jets 8-4 in a weird and eventful game. I mean, Marco, where do we even begin with this?
I think when you say eventful, you're putting it very mildly. This game was an absolute roller coaster. You had four unanswered goals, after four unanswered goals, after another four unanswered goals. I mean, this game was a goal fest in every sense of the word. A lot of positives to draw from the game, a few negatives as well. We're going to
Mhm.
get into it now. There's a lot to unpack. What did you want to start off with, Shane?
We have to start with positivity. I mean, this is the Habs Tonight show. So Josh
Right.
Anderson, the beautiful man behind you, well done
Yep.
drawing by Anik as always.
Yep.
But first career hat trick. I mean, he's been lights out recently, and that first line
Oh, yeah.
again producing. Caulfield and Suzuki also got an assist. So yeah, Josh Anderson worth mentioning because that was a beautiful performance by him.
100%. Hats off to him for his first NHL hat trick. That's obviously a big deal for anybody. But like you said, Anderson has just been lights out every single game recently. And that line, that top line with Suzuki and Caulfield, has just been outstanding. And I'm just so happy to see consistent chemistry and consistent work with the lines, especially the post Ducharme era. This is something that's fantastic to see. And Anderson's really a power horse when he's on his game. He brings in the energy every single night. He plays for the logo in front of him. And he's a strong case for even an alternate captain just be based off his leadership. And I mean, without him, we wouldn't be in the game that we were treated to tonight. So, yeah, I mean, hats off to Anderson. I want to give this opportunity too to give a quick shout out to our boy Lecky too, who also had a goal tonight. And this is also coming off the two goals I scored last game when we went to the Canadian Tire Center together. We saw that game in Ottawa with Damon. It
Yes, sir.
was a nice little meetup with the Habs Tonight crew. It was a treat to watch Lehkonen play there too. He's been also on a tear past few games, making a good argument for his trade value if we're
Mm-hmm.
trying to get rid of him. I don't know. What do you think about that, Shane? Because I mean, obviously the way he's playing, personally, he's someone I would want to keep on our roster personally, but obviously any team would be lucky to have a guy like Lehkonen as a depth guy who could put goals in the back of the net and you could rely on your bottom line. So I mean, what do you think we should do with Lecky at this point?
Like you said, I mean, anybody would want a guy like him. He's such like a well-rounded player. I mean, he's good on both sides of the ice. And like you said, if he's lucky, because my God, this guy's been so unlucky. But if you know the luck is in his way, he will put the puck in the net. Like tonight, a nice breakaway, going 5-hole. It's
Mhm.
two games in a row now with goals. So teams, I mean, I don't see how teams don't throw themselves at a guy like Lehkonen. He's so vital to any top nine, really. He can play big penalty kill minutes. So I'm looking at every contender right now to, getting calls and see what they want to do. But yeah, I'm thinking, I mean, easily a first round pick. It starts with that.
Yeah.
He's by far worth more than that. And then you look at maybe a prospect, the A to B level. But I think we could definitely get a solid return. But he is an RFA at the end of the season. It's not like he is a UFA and we're going to lose him no matter what. So if we do want to keep him, like you said, he might still have a future with the team.
Right, for sure. And I think you're spot on there with him drawing at least at the very, very minimum a first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Because given the fact how so many contenders would need a guy like Lehkonen, I mean, you just look at the Washington Capitals, for example, who have kind of lacked off that offensive depth this season.
Yeah.
And sometimes they've been a little bit inconsistent in their games this season because they have, well, their top line, obviously, but apart from that, you need more of your lines to produce when your main guys get tired on both ends of the ice. And obviously, I can name this example with any other team in the league, but just based off how crucial a depth piece like Lehkonen could bring, especially Lehkonen, I think he's one of the better bottom forwards in the league. Like for depth pieces, I think you could make an argument for that. So I mean, like you said, there's so many teams throwing themselves to get Lehkonen, whether he be dealt to someone like the Capitals or maybe in the Rangers. I mean, there has been talks with that. We could still see that happen before the deadline. Who knows? But obviously, if it were up to me, I'd like to see him stick with the Habs for the
Mm-hmm.
future. But I mean, if the future is good enough, we have to consider it as always. But yeah, very minimum first round prospect. Yeah.
Yeah, remains to be seen. I mean, there's a bunch of guys here that could be trade pieces. We've mentioned Sherratt so many times. It's just a matter of time before that guy goes. But there's another guy that was mentioned, unfortunately, is the guy behind you, right? Who had a 3-goal game. Josh Anderson somehow found himself in the trade rumors, and I think that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
This guy's not going anywhere. I mean, teams would have to give way too much to get him, like overpay by a mile. Nobody's like, we're not trading him for his value. We have to trade him
No.
for like twice the value. So I don't think he's going anywhere. What do you make of those rumors, Marco?
No, I mean, we saw Hughes said it that Anderson was one of his untouchables just because of what he brings to the lineup on a consistent basis. And I mean, right now, he's part of that top line with Suzuki and Caulfield, which is our future generations, and what we envision the Habs to be going forward. So, I mean, that type of chemistry is something that's very rare to come by. And the fact that they've been clicking so rapidly under new coaching is just amazing to see. So, I mean, he was hard to obtain even before, but now, I mean, he's more untouchable than ever. And this is something that Hughes himself said. So I highly doubt that Anderson would be moved. I don't think the Montreal Canadiens are even considering this as a possibility. But like you said, if we'll just pick at straws here at the imagination folder here, but let's say just in case there's a possibility he gets dealt, like you said, teams would have to overpay massively, like a hefty amount to get someone like Anderson, because he's a game changer on any lineup just with the intensity that he brings on a game basis or game to game basis and the leadership he provides. I mean, any team would be lucky to have him, and we're lucky that he's part of our organization, and I hope he could be a fundamental piece for our future with our young stars.
Well said, well said. And I mean, you mentioned it earlier, but definitely a letter on his jersey, whether that's an A or a C. I mean, he's actually my pick for captaincy. I think, time wise, he's in that stage of his career where he's had enough seasons. He's not really a vet, but he's a vet enough to lead a team. So
Yeah.
I could definitely see him with the C. But obviously there's a Gallagher and there's a Suzuki as well on the team who could also wear that C and do very well with it.
Yeah, that's a pretty good take you got there.
Yeah.
And I want to see what the fans have to say to that too. Leave comments down below to see who you guys would pick as a next potential captain. And we're excited to hear you guys' thoughts, because obviously there's a lot of different options, but I think you make a strong case with Anderson there, Shane.
Yeah, and Kent Hughes did confirm that there will be 100% a captain starting next season.
Right.
So, we've been speculating all season long ever since he said that, but we'll keep speculating until it's announced. My pick is for Josh, and I'll stand by that. Listen, we have to talk about the penalties, because 19 minutes apiece. That is 38 minutes of penalty total tonight. That includes the fight, the fight between Weidman and Scheifele. That was terrible.
If you even want to call that a fight.
I mean, it was a little wrestling match. It was awful, but the refs had the easy whistle tonight. And you know what? I'm usually pretty critical of the refs when they deserve it, but tonight I actually think they did a good job. Most of the penalties they called were good calls. I will say the penalty on Kulak was soft as hell. And there was a penalty on the Jets that I thought was pretty soft. But for the most part, there were good calls. And, that kind of changed the balance of the game, because how many power play goals did we get scored on? Like, let me see. 1, 2, 3. And we did score one, though. So that is a positive.
It's something,
but, we get scored 3 times on the penalty kill, which is
and that's the one that really stings, because that was a 4-4 game at that point where anything could really happen, but then 3 straight unanswered power play goals. I mean, at that stage of the game, especially when momentum's on your side, you can't give up those opportunities, especially to a team like Winnipeg when you have Kyle Connor, Blake Wheeler. I mean, you just can't. I mean, especially when you want to keep the momentum in your favor, because right after they got that one power play goal, I mean, you could even argue that when Pitlick got his penalty shot saved by Hellebuyck there, the momentum kind of shift towards in Winnipeg's favor. But that's a very underrated aspect that you need to keep in any sport. So obviously letting up that power play goal to, I think it was Andrew Kopp. I mean, that was a killer for us. And then you pile up the other two on top of that. I mean, the Habs in that case, I mean, they've struggled with this for the majority of the season. They have to do a better job when it comes to giving up penalties. Like you said, I mean, the refs were kind of spot on for most of the game. I mean, the penalties that they called were penalties. The Habs gave up some easy ones on a few occasions. And yeah, I mean, they just have to do a better job not to give, especially teams like Winnipeg, opportunities on the power play, because we see what happens. I mean, we have the game in our hands, and then the momentum shifts and it kills the vibe, and then we go down as a result of that. But yeah, that's something they're gonna have to get better at in the future. But I'm sure St. Louis has been in that position as a player, and he'll just have to discipline his players a little bit more. I think this is the kind of first sort of bad consequence that we've seen as a result of the power play under St. Louis, or the first really bad consequence. So I'm sure that he'll get the players into he'll give them whatever shit he needs just to make sure that they don't do that going forward. Because obviously, I mean, this season's not the end of the world if we lose a few games. I mean, we still want to embrace the tank at the end of the day. But yeah, going forward, I mean, this is not something that you want to see from any team. So yeah, they just got to do a better job with penalty discipline for sure.
That's it. And another thing we need to work on is the faceoffs. We were 37% tonight, which is abysmal. Our best guy was Paling with 55, who I'll give credit to, had a really good game. Nice assist on that third Anderson goal. But aside from that, nobody really stepped up on the faceoff circle. And that's really when we're missing a guy like Christian Dvorak, who was so steady there, albeit there was some aspects of his game that could be improved and whatnot. He's not had the best season, but nonetheless, faceoff circle was so critical tonight, and we just couldn't get it done.
No, yeah. I mean, the faceoffs too is another aspect that kind of gets overlooked too, but it's a direct change in possession. And once you have possession of the puck, I mean, it's all in your hands. And we saw what happened on the first goal too, straight from the draw down to the point, and then up to the wing, and then cross crease. And that's how the first goal went in on us. So, I mean, yeah, tonight the faceoffs were a little bit less accurate, not accurate, but
yeah, we weren't on the money.
We weren't on the money on the faceoffs. They just have to do a better job with that going forward. But yeah, apart from that, another thing that wasn't really on the money, I think you could say, was the goaltending on both sides of the ice tonight. I mean, Monty had maybe two shaky ones there. The rest of them, I wouldn't really fault him for. Hellebuyck, I think, in my opinion, was Swiss cheese tonight. Thankfully, he gave us an opportunity to come back in this game, make it a little bit more interesting for us. But yeah, I mean, goaltending was less than optimal tonight, I think you could say.
Definitely not a goaltending battle like we saw in Ottawa. That was a nice performance by both Matt Murray and Andrew Hammond. But tonight, yeah. I mean, for everybody, shitting on Samuel Montembeault, of course, that's not a game anybody wants to have. Like, it's a .696 save percentage. Terrible. But you got to take into consideration, the goals. That Schmidt goal was a fluke. I mean, it deflected off Lehkonen, and I do believe it deflected a little bit off Connor. So I think it should be his goal. A little bit. So it's like deflecting twice, and then the Scheifele goal off of Shara is garbage. It's these kinds of goals that don't really count in a sense. And then there's other goals that really he couldn't do anything about. Two on O's, 2-on-1s. Like, how many odd man rushes did Winnipeg have tonight? Way too many. And they did capitalize on some of those. So I can't really fault Montembeault tonight. There's maybe, like you said, two goals that he'd like to see back. But again, is 8-4 or 6-4, we still lose. So it is what it is. And Hammond, for the couple of minutes he played, was fine. Let in one, but that's no biggie, So I don't think this goaltending duel will not be remembered. And Hellebuyck too, man. That first Anderson goal was so soft. Yeah, the guys are wet fart.
uh, really nice about Helly over there, Shane. I love it. But no, I mean, I think you said that too. I mean, we can't really fault Monty tonight. I mean, at the end of the day, too, the defense has got to help him out. I feel like
Yeah.
they kind of let him out to dry on multiple occasions tonight. So he's not at all to fault for this game, I don't think. Helbuck, I mean, he did nice to stop the penalty shot there on Pitlick, but apart from that, less than optimal on him too. This goaltending battle won't be remembered, like you said, and yeah, I mean, thankfully, I mean, we got an entertaining show as a
Yeah,
result of it.
that's
At
it.
least, I mean,
Very fun
there's still
game.
some positives to draw from it, some Habsitivity, I think you could
That's
say.
it. And
Which
that's a yeah, go
no,
ahead,
go
go ahead.
ahead. And I was just gonna say, because we brought up the Habsitivity, you could use the code Habsitivity for our merch. We still have 20% off going on, I believe, right, Shane?
Bam.
Yeah.
Go to our
Yeah.
website. It is our 1 year anniversary after all.
Yes.
So we were giving you guys a 20% discount on anything and everything in the store, whether it be hats, hoodies, shirts. We have it all. So do yourself a favor and go check that out. We have some really good stuff there. But I like your little segue there, because bringing it back into a positive spin, the boys came back from a 4-0 deficit, and even when it was 7-4, there was still fight in them, right? They were still competing.
Right.
If this was the same team from a couple of weeks ago, this game would have finished 7-0 after 2 periods and a half. So
Yeah.
the boys would have given up right away, but not this team, right? This team is in it to win it. They want to win every night. They want to compete, and I think we know where that starts from, right? The
Yeah.
beauty behind the bench is really making a difference.
For sure. I mean, that's a very good point they brought up there because, I mean, even me looking at this game, when I saw 4-0 the first period, I was like, oh boy, this looks like the old Habs and the Ducharme days. And I thought the game would just be completely lost from then. But the amount of effort and fight that they brought into that game after going down 4 goals and to actually tie the game back up to score 4 unanswered is no small feat. So,
No,
I
that's it.
mean, 100% this has to do with St. Louis getting to the guys saying, okay, guys, like, let's go. With this game, still a lot of game left to play. Let's get back in it. And they did. I mean, it sucks that they couldn't finish the job, but no, just the fight and the effort that they brought in to even tie this game back up shows a lot of team character, and it shows what kind of team we could expect going forward into the next season, even though we didn't get the W. I mean, if we keep this ever going forward next season, we will get a lot of W's as a result of that. So, yeah, for sure. I mean, you got to give all credit to St. Louis behind the bench and to hope that he'll be there to lead the boys next season going forward for our team's foreseeable future.
And that's it. The people who are, full steam ahead on the tank are really happy with tonight's game. It was entertaining, and we lost in regulation, so no points and a fun game. Well, for the most part. So I
Yeah.
think it's a win-win for everybody. Quickly on Brandon Gallagher, poor guy cannot put it in the net. His last goal goes back to November, and he's not used to that. Like, this guy's used to 25, 30 goal seasons, and my goodness, it's just not been his season at all.
No, and it really hasn't. And I mean, we were seeing this from a lot of players too at the beginning. It wasn't really looking like they're seasoned. I mean, Gallagher, the important part is that regardless of the amount of points that he puts up, just the amount of effort and his presence on the ice and his leadership is what speaks most about him, in my opinion. And we're lucky to have him as a result of that because you can't really find that grit from many players nowadays. So, I mean, even though, yeah, he has been on a little bit of a slump, his last goal going back to November, like you said, and we hope for Gowie's confidence that he could get a few goals, a few tucks in before the end of the season so that he could get that confidence building going into next season, that he could kind of use that as further leadership to the young guys going forward into the future as well. Because, I mean, he's an obvious candidate for captain as well. So, I mean, regardless of the amount of points that he puts up, his presence on the ice, it's nothing to underestimate. So, yeah, we hope for our boy Gallagher that he get a few tucks in and end this this awful goal scoring drought that he's been experiencing as of late. But yeah.
No, I think that's a really good point. The energy he brings is invaluable. Really, it goes such a long way, and it really touches every guy on the ice. It makes everybody around him better. So, even if he's not putting it in the back of the net, he's still out there and giving his all, getting beat up in front of the net, classic Galley, and trying to kick the puck in the net. But hey, you know
Hey, he
what? You
showed us
can't
he was a
blame him.
multi-sport athlete
At
tonight.
least he tried, and it did not work whatsoever. But nice try, Galley, and hopefully next time it goes in.
I'm surprised they took so long to even review that. I mean, that was an obvious kick from the get-go, right?
That was really weird. I don't know why they reviewed it twice, but I guess the league asked for it.
They wanted a little soccer highlight tape from Gallagher there because if you guys didn't know, he is a multi-sport athlete. So him showcasing his soccer skills off, maybe he could get himself a FC Montreal tryout. Who knows?
Oh boy, yeah, that'd be something. That's it. I mean, other standouts tonight, really, nobody. I don't know. I liked Romanov's game for the most part. He was involved physically, as always. But if we talk about the physical aspects, we got out hit 31-17 tonight. So physically speaking, the guys weren't really into it. Obviously Romy got, or actually Romy's only credited one hit, but he definitely hit more than that. Petrie has 3 and Lehkonen had 3. But I thought the guys didn't really get too involved in the boards and the physical aspects and all that.
Yeah, I mean, especially compared to that Ottawa game that we saw live, I mean, the physical aspect was a lot lower in this game than it was then. I mean, Romanov was still involved on the ice. I mean, you could see him going in for pucks, and him too. He's a player that shows a lot of grit. He demonstrates a good intensity on the ice too. So I mean, even though the stats sheet doesn't really exemplify his performance, I mean, he's still someone who puts in the work. So I mean, Romanov, I guess he was a standout for me too. I think Paling too had a good game. I would have liked to see a little bit more from Evans, honestly, especially considering the circumstances with Shifley. I would have liked a little revenge goal from him, but couldn't get it, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, other standouts. I mean, it's kind of hard to pick out standouts in when you give up 8 goals, but I think we named the major ones there.
That's it. Evans did get a revenge assist, so we'll something. We'll take that. So looking forward here, Thursday going against Calgary, literally the hottest team in the league, pun intended. I see what you did there. we're in for a bad one there. I'm not too optimistic, let's be honest. But Tyler Toffoli, we get to play against him now. That's gonna suck. He had like a goal and an assist again tonight. He's been on a tear over there, and we love to see it. Obviously, we're a big fan of Tyler Toffoli, but what do you expect for Thursday's game there?
I mean, I'd like to say that we have a good shot, but I mean, I wouldn't really be truthful there if I'd be saying that. I mean, to be honest, the Calgary Flames have been like top 3, like one of the hottest teams in the league, 100%. I mean, they trashed the Wild tonight, who was also considered one of the top teams in the league too. We're on quite of a tear there, and I mean, they're still near the top of the standings in the West. So I mean, just to demolish that team tonight, and I mean Toffoli too. He's been putting in a few points in the few games that he's played with Calgary, like already. So I mean, that's a little bit concerning, especially considering that he's a third line forward. I mean, Toffoli. I mean, when you have Toffoli as your third line forward, you're stacked offensively. I mean, we've seen that first line with Gaudreau, Tkachuk, and Lindholm is absolutely disgusting. It's unfair. It's up there with Colorado with one of the best first lines in the league, in my opinion. So I mean, that game's going to be a toughie. But even going forward, we have the Oilers, who are looking a little bit more rejuvenated with the coaching change over there. And even the Canucks too, who are looking pretty good as of recently. Not last game. I mean, they did lose 7-2 to the Devils, but I mean, it happens. We also got trashed by the Devils. I think it's just one of those things that happens to every team. They got to take their L to the Devil every now and then. But it's not going to be easy 3 games going forward to play the rest of the Western Canadian teams. Calgary, I think, will be the toughest test going forward. If we could get a win from there, I mean, we did beat them earlier this season, right?
We did.
It's not impossible to do. Just the way they've been playing recently, it's definitely not encouraging, to say the least.
Not at all. It's a very tough road trip ahead of us, but we pray for the best. I mean, tonight was not the result that anybody expected or wanted, but still a lot of positives out of it. Josh Anderson gets his first hat trick, and a couple of guys played well. You had something to say?
Oh no, I was just pointing.
Oh, okay, you're pointing
there.
Beautiful drawing again by
Shout out to
our
Nick.
dear
Yeah,
Anik Lemay. Fantastic work. But yeah, tough road trip. I mean, Edmonton just shut out. Who was it tonight? Let me see. Oh, they shut out Philly. I mean, no big feat there. Philly kind of sucks, but surprised to see Koskinen getting a shutout, though. I'll say that.
That is shocking. Yeah, I mean, if you would have bet on that, you would have got a pretty decent return in the betting books there, I think.
That's good return. Art asks us a question, Marco. What are our thoughts on Petrie and Sherratt having a letter on their jersey again tonight? What does that indicate? Anything to you?
I mean, Petrie was somebody who he was experiencing one of the biggest slumps we've seen out of any of the players earlier this season, and we could see it take a hit on his confidence, and as a result, as his leadership to the group, we saw him throw the team under the bus a little bit when the team was kind of just suffering under that Ducharme reign. But since St. Louis taken over, we've automatically seen the difference in a lot of key players like Caulfield and Petrie, both of them. And Petrie's past few games, he's been putting up quite a few points. He's shown like he enjoys playing again and that he wants to play. He wants to lead this group again. So I'm not surprised that they would give him the A back, especially considering that he had it in the past. I mean, I feel like the leadership is just a quality that is always going to be a part of Jeff. And we just saw with Ducharme, his confidence was kind of at an all-time low. So that's why the leadership wasn't as apparent, but it's still there within Jeff. And I think ever since we got that coaching change, that just exemplifies the type of leadership he could bring if he's surrounded by the right mentality and the right group of people. Because let's be honest, Jeff has had probably one of the toughest seasons for any of the Habs players to experience. All the changes going on with him and all the criticism, if you're putting it nicely, you could say he received from a lot of the fans. Even his wife had to get involved in that. I mean, it wasn't pretty at all. So to see him kind of be rejuvenated and get rewarded with that A, it's good to see, I think. And I think it's something you want to see going forward. To see him lead the group going forward this season. So I'm not surprised they would give him the A back. And Sherratt's always been that guy too. And he's been one of our better showcases as a player this season. And even tonight he played well. And I mean, he consistently plays well. I mean, so no surprise there that you would have Sherratt with the A. But yeah, just really good to see Petrie back, kind of get back to that game there that we're used to seeing from him, I think.
That's it. Yeah, I wouldn't really look into it that much. There's a bunch of guys on the team that could wear a letter, really. So Petrie's a veteran. So is Sherratt. They're both leadership type of guys. So I have no problem with them having a letter, whatever their future entails, whether they get traded or not. But I mean, yeah, that's it. I wouldn't really look into it that much. And I like I said, I think plenty of guys could have a letter on their jersey. You know, Anderson, Suzuki, Galley, Petrie, Sherratt, Edmondson. I could keep going here. So it's good. It's good to have that much leadership so that you can pass around the A. It's a bit weird though. We're not used to that. We're used to having a fixed group, a fixed leadership group, and maybe that'll come next season. More stability on that front. But yeah, for the most part, I don't think it's anything we should look too much into. I mean, that about wraps up the post game for tonight. Again, the Habs lose 8-4 against the Winnipeg Jets. Weird and eventful game, but a fun one for most of it. Actually, we kind of enjoyed this one. So, Marco, thank you for jumping on, my friend. Always a pleasure. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget, go get your merch, habstonight.net. Do yourself a favor. All right. Good night, everybody.
Take care.